Hi, and thank you for joining us today. We are here with author Michael McGarrity, and he is a famous New Mexico writer, and we're going to be talking about his current new book, Head Wounds. And I'm very excited to have you, Michael. And thank you so much for spending time with us today.
My pleasure.
Well, thank you. And if we can, I'd like to start right off with asking you, can you share something about the book Head Wounds that would surprise your reader? What was your favorite part of the book?
Well, one of the really interesting parts of this book that really got me started thinking about writing it was some casual research that I had done some years ago about a Native American tribe called the Kickapoos. And in doing research about the Mescaleros and the Jicarilla Apaches, which has been a subject of a number of my books in terms of a character and his family, I learned that the Kickapoo tribe, which had originally lived in the northern Midwest, had gradually been forced out of their ancestral homelands by Western expansion. And finally, a group of them wound up, after having been chased from the upper Midwest into the prairies, into the southern Rockies, actually literally voluntarily migrated to New Mexico and have lived there on their own reservation for way over 100 years.
Wow.
And most people aren't aware of that. They weren't aware at all about this northern native tribe who had settled in a very remote area of northern Mexico and had been there for many years. And I just found that incredibly interesting. And I also found the tribe incredibly interesting because, much like the Apaches, they are fiercely protective of their traditions and their religion and their values, and were incredibly ferocious warriors during their day. And so that really was the kickstart for Head Wounds. And I'm a firm believer that most of the readers, when they delve into Head Wounds, are going to find that bit of Kickapoo history that's woven into the story quite interesting. I think it will be surprising.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I enjoyed it tremendously. Yes, definitely. How do you, Michael, how do you come up with the characters for your books? Is there ever a librarian or somebody you might know?
The reason I raised that is because I truly believe that you have never read one of my novels called Mexican Hat.
Oh, I have not.
You have not. You have
no,
not. You have not. If
no.
Read,
Is there a librarian in it?
No, you see, now I'm calling you out, girl. I'm calling you out.
No, I'll be honest with you, this was the first book I've ever read of yours. And I had to do
my second novel, Mexican Hat, is set in the Silver City, Gila region of the state. And one of the most delightful characters in that book is a very charming young librarian with a 1,000-watt smile who happens to be the girlfriend of one of the other characters in the book. And when that book came out, I got more compliments from librarians all over the country that there was finally a librarian in a book who was sexy and cute and smart, and they thanked me for it. So that's why I asked you to ask that question.
That's super.
Chance you can read Mexican Hat and see what I had to say about a library.
I'm gonna do that one next. I'm gonna do that one next. You know what I did notice that I thought was cool in the book Head Wounds is you had put down Grace, Clayton's wife, that she was part of the Friends of the Library. So I think that was pretty cool in this.
There you go.
Yep, that's cool.
I made you blush.
Yeah, you did. Tell me, do you find it more challenging to write the first book of a series or the last book of a series?
All of them are challenging. There's no such thing as writing, for me anyway, there's no such thing as writing an easy book. Each time I go into it, I don't want people to misinterpret this, but each time I go into it, I'm like a virgin, you know, for the very first time, kind of that Madonna song, right? But each book is tough. And I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I don't think any artist, whether they're working with pen and pencil, or whether they're doing three-dimensional work, or whether they're directing films or creating sculptures, can crank it out. And those people who do, as far as I'm concerned, I see no value in it. I mean, if all they're doing is reproducing the same old over and over again, then I'm not entertained, I'm not engaged, I'm not brought into the process as a participant. So for me, it's hard work, and I don't want that ever to change. I don't want it ever to be easy, because that means I'm letting myself down somehow. That means I'm not only letting myself down, but I may be even trying to fool my readers. I want everything to be fresh. I want it to be as compelling as it can be. So that means I have to work hard. No, it's not easy. I don't ever want it to be.
That's cool. That shows a lot of passion. Tell us, what is the process for coming up with the cover? When you come up with the cover for the book, is this the New Mexico Gorge?
That's the Rio Grande Gorge.
The Rio Grande Gorge.
Rio Grande Gorge. Yeah. How do we do that? Well, it's really a collaboration. And I get that question often, so I thought I'd share what the process is. You can suggest and make recommendations and give guidance, but in the contract, and I think this is true for every boilerplate book contract in the world, the publisher really has the final say. Now, that's not to say you can't influence it, and I do. One of the interesting New Mexico stories about how I was able to influence book covers is when Tularosa first came out, my first book came out, I flew back to New York City to meet with my publisher, and I took with me some photographs of artwork that was done by a Santa Fe artist by the name of Peter de la Fuente. Now, Peter de la Fuente may sound like he's old New Mexican, but basically he was born in Spain to the daughter of Peter Hurd and Henriette Wyeth, and a French philosopher. So Peter is the grandson of two of the best known, best loved New Mexico painters of the 20th century, Peter Hurd and Henriette Wyeth. And so I took these photographs back because I knew Peter and he was a friend. And I said, I'd really like him to be the cover artist. And they went for it. And so the cover art for Mexican Hat, Tularosa, Mexican Hat, and then my third and fourth book, Serpent Gate and Hermit's Peak, were all done by Peter de la Fuente. And we even reused the cover art for Tularosa on the last book of my American West trilogy, The Last Ranch. So I was very, very lucky, without even knowing it, that I was able to get a family member of one of the most famous New Mexico artist couples of the 20th century to do the artwork for actually 5 of my books. It's really been quite delightful for me that happened.
That's cool. That is super cool. Yep, that is amazing. Yeah, people don't realize what goes into sometimes the little things like the artwork for the cover. And I think it's wonderful that you were able to use the same artist for so many of them. That's great. So tell me, Michael, do you find it more energizing or exhausting?
It's both.
Is it both?
It's both. Sometimes doing 200 words a day can be awful, and there's sometimes when I've written some really beautiful, prosaic, wonderful stuff, and I have to kill it because it doesn't advance the story. It may be delightful, and it may be even insightful, but it doesn't work, so it has to go away. So it's both.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, you would think that it could have its energizing parts, but I would find it exhausting because when I sit down to write, it just like takes so much just to put a report together sometimes for me. So that's cool. So tell me, we have the Kevin Kearney's book series, the Pre-American West trilogy books. And can you tell us what you're working on next? Can you share?
Sure, I can. All right, well, I've done the crime series. I've wound it up. Somewhat sad, but I think it was time to retire Kearney. And I do not appreciate writers of crime series or mystery fiction who continue to put the same old stuff out long past their prime when all they're looking at is those royalty checks coming in. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to stop this when I thought it was time to stop it. So I've done the crime series. I did the trilogy prequel, which again, as far as I know, is the first. So what's next? I'm going to do a spin-off. And the spin-off is going to be a story about Kearney's wife's family. That's what's in the works.
That is super cool. What does your lovely wife think about you writing, and has she inspired you in any way with Sarah, Kearney's wife, Sarah?
She not only thinks what I'm doing is great, she helped make it happen. I would take time off from work. I would cut back on my income. I would quit a job and write for a certain period of time, and then look at the balance of the family budget and say, I got to go back to work. And she was always behind me 100%. And, as far as she was concerned, it was going to happen. She knew it was inevitable. I wasn't quite so sure. From the time I seriously started writing to the time I got my first book contract, it was 14 years. And I have to tell you, this is an anniversary month for me, because it was 25 years ago, April 17th, that my debut novel, Tularosa, was published. So I've been a full-time writer. Again, I was able to become a full-time writer with that book coming out. And so that's what I've been doing for the last quarter of a century. And she thinks it's great because we've been having a lot of fun. Okay. And is she an inspiration? Well, there's really 2 women in my life that I admire, and that's my sweetie, Mimi, who I met at UNM in 1960, and my mom. What are they? They're tough, they're beautiful, they're bright, they're real people, and I can't deal with any other kind of woman except that. So she's been behind me all the way for a very, very long time.
That's so super. So super. That is amazing. That's great. So tell us then, which one of the books would you say is your favorite? Which one so far? Which one so far is your favorite?
I always like to say my favorite book is the one that I'm writing.
Is which one?
The one that I'm writing is my favorite.
Oh.
My sentimental favorite, of course, will always be Tularosa, my debut novel. To me, it's interesting because I've never read any of my books for pleasure. So I don't know how good they are or how bad they are. The only time I dip into them is when I'm fact checking myself. You know, if I have a recurring character and I'm bringing that person back into a new story, I have to remind myself, did they have brown eyes or green eyes or blue eyes? And so I have to look it up. So I'll go back to the book where I introduced them and look for their physical description so that I don't get it wrong. And believe me, if I get something wrong in my books, I hear about it. You know, I had one old sailor write me and say about a book I'd written, you said the flag was at half mast, and you can't have a flag at half mast anywhere except on a ship. And he was right. So on ground, the flag has to be at half staff, not half mast. So I have to fact check myself along with fact checking everything else that I write about. So that's the only time I ever really go into my books to look for some information that I need so I can stay accurate. So I don't know. I don't know how enjoyable they are. I don't know how good they are. I really don't. One of these days, I may sit down and read one from
Yeah. Well, I hope you get to, because I will tell you this is a good book. And every New Mexican should read it. Anybody who loves New Mexico will love this book. And that is true. Tell us about the first published book. When you first published your first book, how did you celebrate? What did you do?
Yeah, we had a party. Before we celebrated, the first celebration we had was for the signed contract. When I signed the contract for 2 books, because they offered me a 2-book deal. My sweetie Mimi threw this wonderful party, and she prepped everything, she made everything, she designed the meal and the menu, and we invited everybody, and it was a blast. It was a big blast. So it was quite a grand celebration. I equate selling a book to a New York publishing house as the equivalent of winning a gold medal at the Olympics. To me, it's at that level of achievement. So we made a big party out of it.
That's so cool. I would party. Heck yeah. How many people came?
Oh, 30. I was by the time. I'll ask Mimi.
That's cool.
It was a full house.
That's cool. Do you have any new series planned? Are you planning? I mean, you're doing a spin-off. Do you think it'll be a whole series?
No, I take it one book at a time. I can't look ahead beyond, my immediate horizon. And so I have to concentrate on that. So it's one book at a time. I'm delighted. My publisher gave me a contract for this next book. So I'm still employed. And at my age, that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Tell me, would you ever write, how you wrote the Kevin Kearney series in real time. Would you ever write about COVID-19 or a pandemic? Would you ever work that into your plot, do you think?
Not yet. I'm more interested in getting through it than I am writing about it.
Oh, I agree. I wish it was over, and I hope it is over soon.
Yes, you all do.
Yes. So then, can you tell us what is currently on your bedside table? What are you reading right now?
I'm reading the biography of Eleanor Roosevelt. I'm about halfway through it, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm learning quite a bit about the woman, learning quite a bit about her husband, FDR, their life together, the struggles they had, their romances apart from each other, things that I never knew about her. But she's always been a woman who fascinated me, someone who I admired growing up.
Yeah.
And so I'm deep into that right now. I read a lot of nonfiction and biography when I'm writing fiction, and I do that deliberately because I don't like other fiction writers' style going through my head. I kind of want to block that out and keep it off to one side. So fiction writing limits the number of novels I'm willing to read. But after I finish a book, then I'll jump into some good fiction, good mystery, good crime fiction.
That's cool. That is super cool. So tell us, Michael, do you know what's for dinner tonight?
Yeah, homemade pizza.
Homemade pizza, I love it. And would you say that is one of your favorite foods, or what is your favorite food?
Whatever Mimi fixes. I happen to live with a woman who's probably the best amateur, quote unquote, cook on the planet, right? She is amazing. And I joke and say that under all other circumstances, if I had a different metabolism, I'd probably weigh 350 pounds. But she is an amazing, amazing cook. So, she will fix meals that I have a hard time replicating when you go out to eat. It's very hard to go out and dine somewhere, even at a very nice restaurant, and be sitting there realizing that the food doesn't quite live up to the meals that I get at home, But I cannot deny her the pleasure of taking her out to a good restaurant. After all, she deserves that.
Yes.
So, hip hip hooray for Mimi. This woman can cook. And many years ago, I used to say she could cook in a lot of ways.
That is so wonderful. And it is so refreshing and beautiful to see that the love that you have for her. Okay, I got another question here. What is your favorite Tony Hillerman book?
Dance Hall of the Dead.
What is it?
Dance Hall of the Dead.
Dance Hall of the Dead.
And I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a creative writing scholarship at the University of New Mexico, the Hillerman McGarrity Creative Writing Scholarship, that Tony and I set up, and it's endowed and it pays for the tuition, fees, and books for 3 creative writing students every year. So I knew Tony at UNM in the 1960s when he was the assistant to the president of the university, Tom Popejoy, and I was an undergraduate working on the student newspaper. So Tony and I go way back, and he was one of the first people to blurb my book and endorse me, and even went so far in an interview to say that I was one of the 5 favorite people that he liked as writers. His wife used to joke that she liked my books better than she liked his, and that was a big chuckle. But I had once told Tony that Dance Hall of the Dead was my favorite, and actually he agreed with me. He thought it was one of his strongest books as well.
That is wonderful.
So it really is one of his best books.
That is wonderful. I'm going to have to put that on my list as well, because it has been very exciting for me. I don't know if you know it, Michael, but I have never done this before. This was my
great job. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to share with you, because I don't want to give out any spoilers about the book, but I loved so many of the characters that was in it. And I love names like El Jefe and the one character by the name of Wanda, which you know is very close to Rhonda. And so I related to her right away, although I would never do what she did. I'm just saying. Okay. But I did enjoy it. And I cannot wait. Tell me, do you have any idea of when this next book might be out? I know it takes some time.
No, I won't even have it finished until a year from now.
For a year.
So I don't have even a clue when my publisher will want to release it. It could be the year after next, early 2023. I don't know. So we'll just have to see.
Just have to wait and see. Well, I know there's going to be a lot of people waiting to see it, because you are very, very popular, and hopefully this will even bring a greater audience to you with closing a series, because I know a lot of prolific readers that once they get going, they like to go through the whole series, which when they're catch it from the beginning can take years, but for them, they can whip through it, you know. So that's nice.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yes. Thank you, Michael.
I get yelled at by my fans because I don't write fast enough. But my response to that is you wouldn't like what I did if I wrote fast.
No.
So I'd rather do a good job and make people wait a little bit.
I agree. Well, is there anything else you would like to let us know?
Well, I need to go take my nap.
All right. Well, Michael, thank you. Thank you so much for giving us this time. And when your next book comes out, maybe we can do this again if you feel like it.
All right. Well, I'll take it under consideration. I'll consult with my agent and publisher and see whether they think it would be a good use of my time.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Be happy down there. Be well.
I'm sorry?
I said, be happy, be safe, and be well.
Oh, yes, definitely. You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Goodbye.